I am ecstatic about eating these puppies. There's an out route. Oh, it's picked!
Are you kidding me? It's a scrum in the middle of the field. And there's Gibson just pulling his way through that entire War Eagles defense.
On his senior night, Chaplin escapes. What a start with a touchdown. Leaning tower of pretzels.
Hard to believe, guys. We're halfway through the high school football season. And as that calendar turns to the start of fall, it's this week coming up, Mark. I'm Evan Budrovich, Mark Covert with us. Great start to week 5 of the high school football season. Mark, I want to dive into a team we're going to see this Friday in our My 48 matchup. The Grimsley Whirlies, who have won a state title in the last 5 years. They were the best team to give Weddington a run for their money last season in the region semifinal. And Mark, this team has some new pieces. Let's start off at top with that. Terrell Anderson, now at NC State. Alex Taylor, now in the ACC. And we talked with this Grimsley staff all week. That adjustment of learning the new receivers, figuring out the offense, it hasn't stopped Mitchell Summers, but it's a brand new game at the receiver position.
Yeah, and it's been really something to watch. I mean, these guys have fired off on all cylinders to start the season. For about as good as you can ask for when you got that new group of receivers and weapons coming into an offense. It's so hard a lot of the times to get on the same page, especially quickly as you start going into conference play. And it's just been, business as usual for Grimsley. I mean, you have new guys come in, they learn the system, they know the system through going through it for years and years. And then by the time they're ready to start and play significant snaps, they're ready to go. So for them, it's all about the prep. Everything that they do year in and year out, it counts for the year ahead and the year after that, all the behind the scenes work. So really it goes out as a testament to these kids for being prepared and taking in that coaching staff and really working with them, try to get them to be where they need to be when their number is called.
If you're Jesse Tripp, the offensive coordinator, so for some perspective here, Alex Taylor, Terrell Anderson, both all-state receivers, they combined for 2,300 yards last year.
Yeah.
Both with double-figure touchdowns. It was literally twin towers on the outside. You throw it up, and Faison Brandon, who goes from elite receiving core, now, Mark, he's got to be a playmaker, a manager, and he has no interceptions this year. Like, he's gotten better despite the lack of talent.
And the numbers, just from a volume standpoint, are not going to blow you away right now, right? Only 4 touchdowns on the year. So it hasn't been this amazing, explosive, like fill out the box score kind of start for Faison Brandon. But don't let that be something that fools you going down the line, because the kid is evolving. He's showing different tendencies than he did the last couple of years. And only as a junior, I mean, there's still so much room for him to grow. So the fact that he's been able to go from that quarterback who can make the big plays and find the receivers down the field and do all those things to becoming the quarterback who has to be more game manager and make sure his guys are getting touches and you distribute that football. Again, another testament to him and the coaching staff preparing him and getting him into that mindset where we have to change some things. And maybe that changes as the season goes along and him and the receivers gain that rapport. But right now, he's done an excellent job of just adapting to the situation, making the right reads and throws, and getting his team down the field and putting them in a position to succeed.
So last game, Grimsley had a bye, but their last game, Reagan's a top 15 team in the state and especially in 4A. There's no such thing as a perfect game, but I think Faison Brandon's pretty close. 13 of 13, 188 yards, couple of touchdowns, and he ran for a touchdown. Like, this kid is only getting better, and it's guys like Caden Cateau, a backup receiver from a year ago. He's got 20 catches now. It's the tight ends. It's the third string JV receivers now playing starting offense. And Mark, last year's offense scored 50 points a game. This year's offense might be even more balanced than what we saw last year.
Yeah, more conservative. Again, that goes into the whole thing we talked about with Faison already, where it's less explosion, and it's a more conservative offense. But it's not methodical, if that makes sense. Like, you're not asking for 3 yards in a cloud of dust going the whole way down the field. And, it's a 15-play, 16-play drive every single time. No, they are getting those yards, just not in as big of chunks. But they're staying on time. They're staying on schedule. Everything they're trying to do, the right play calls are coming in. They're executing. They're able to move the football. So, again, adapting to the pieces that you have. This roster has done an excellent job of that. And Grimsley is right where they've always been, where they always continue to be as long as Coach Dale Brown and his staff are going to be there. And that's towards the top of the rankings, rightfully so.
Grimsley right now, the latest 4A rankings, number 1 seed on this western side of the bracket. And think back to last year, they were the 4 seed. Weddington, the eventual champs, they owned the tiebreakers, had a better conference strength of schedule. And you know how important late in the playoffs it is. I want to touch on as well, Mark, this kid Mitchell Summers. And it's a shame there aren't huge Division I teams touching him yet. He's maybe 5'6", and the coaches said maybe 155, soaking wet. But the dude scored 45 touchdowns last year. Yep. He's been even better this year. And Mark, one of the best running backs in the state.
The key word through all of that was yet. Because I promise you at the next level, and you know this because we've talked to our fair share of college coaches over our years of doing games. If you can play football, they will find you. And it does not matter what level you're at. It doesn't matter your size, whatever. Your measurables do not come into play when you turn on the tape and they can see that you can play ball. So Mitchell Summers is another one of those guys that you go out on the field and it's almost impossible to not walk away from it absolutely stunned by what he's doing. The athleticism is there, the feel for the game of football and just running the football, getting out there, making plays. Truly a back that can really make it all happen for this offense. And again, when they evolve into a slower paced offense, more conservative, you start looking to what your running backs are doing. And right now, a 6.5 yards per carry average, over 400 yards coming in the 4th game of the season, and 9 touchdowns already. He has been electric. He has been steady. He's been exactly what you need out of a bell cow running back. Mitchell Summers, again, does not matter what that size is. If you can play ball, they will find you. And I know at some point those colleges are going to come calling in the masses.
Daryl Brown noted Mitchell's hungrier than ever before. First 3 games, 20-plus carries. But you factor in this backup running back, Micah Williams. Now, he's electric with speed. And Mark Grimsley's not always had the repertoire of running backs. Good luck if you're any defense this year, because those two have been fantastic.
Yeah, again, this offense moving more towards running the football, kind of bringing it back a little bit. But when your team is averaging almost 6 yards a carry combined between all your players that have run the football so far, you probably should buckle up defensively because it's going to be a long night. They're going to ground and pound until you are basically into submission. And that's what these two backs have done between Williams and Summers. It's been an offense that's been a thrill to watch. It's been a very different offense than what we've seen in the last couple of years with Grimsley, for sure. But it's fun to see them adapt and change with a different roster, with different players starting and contributing. So those backs have been excellent. Williams is just another up-and-comer as a junior, so he's seeing what Summers is doing. He's taking all that information in. He's going to be able to turn that around. And once he's what we assume starter next year, he'll be ready to go in that way, just like our Summers was when his number was called.
Grimsley has 7 players on the offensive side of the ball with FBS or FCS offers. You just don't see that at the high school level. I don't care where you're at. Now, on the defensive side, it's a 4-star edge rush, outside linebacker. It's the greatest position now in the NFL. But here comes Bryce Davis, the Duke commit who just signed this summer. And Mark, he's healthy this year. He missed all of last season minus 1 game with a knee injury, and he looks electric through 3 weeks.
Yeah, and it's probably a good omen for Duke that he was originally a Clemson commit, flipped over to the Blue Devils. So we know the lineage at the collegiate level that Clemson has had along the defensive line.
Dexter Lawrence right here in Wake Forest, no doubt.
Yep, exactly. So they have had some studs out there. So if Clemson is clamoring for him and had him, that's got to be a massive steal for Manny Diaz and the Blue Devils over there in Durham. But he is the true anchor of that defensive front. We've seen some pretty good defensive linemen come out of Grimsley here the last couple of years as well. And he's just the next one in the line. I mean, power, speed, everything you want up front, the strength to also hold the point of attack and wear an offense down. And it allows the other Grimsley Worley defenders to get over there and make plays. So Bryce Davis, the consummate package, whenever you talk about a prospect going on to the next level, we're going to see a lot of him, I would assume, tomorrow night in a matchup that I'm sure he's licking his chops to get after.
We will also see a dark side cape for Grimsley. It's a new tradition they've had the last couple of years. They get the turnover. Imagine Darth Vader. They put on the cape. 30 turnovers last year. Now, they played 15 games with the playoffs and all that.
Sure.
And they've averaged 2 turnovers a game this year. Man, this Grimsley team, the secondary is better. You talk to Darryl Brown and Joe Rigsby, the O coordinator, and you talk to the D coordinator, and it's like the secondary is better. You do lose Ja'Kai Eason, who's now playing FCS football, but in comes Kyrie Miller, middle linebacker, and it's like, I don't want to say you reload at the high school level, but this program's just as good.
But that's what it is. They're reloading. I mean, every single year, like, you've got these guys going off, and it's unusual to have this many players, unless you are like a modern day out in California, right? I mean, one of those, the Bishop Gorman, I mean, IMG Academy, like, unless you're one of those schools where kids come to you because they want to play there to get that exposure, it's unusual for a team like Grimsley to have this many talented guys come in and then leave almost every year. And the very next year, you think, they may be down. They lost, a big time quarterback. They lost 2 great wide receivers. What are they going to do? Ho hum, man. They just reload and get after you just like they did the year before. It's impressive. It's really impressive. And that is a testament, again, to this roster, these coaches, for putting this program at the pinnacle of high school football here in the state of North Carolina. And let's be honest, Evan, they're probably not going anywhere anytime soon.
52-3 in the last 4 years. You got a state championship, undefeated year, and then losses in at least the 4th round or deeper. You don't lose till December if you go to Grimsley, basically in the last 4 to 5 years. I do want to touch on their opponent for this week, because this is neat. Grimsley's on the road. The conference in the Metro 4A opens, where Grimsley's won the title 4 straight years. But the one team to beat them in this 4-year stretch is Southeast Guilford, the southern corner of the Greensboro area. It's a small farming town, but it is hands-on. Isabella's Italian, I've heard, is fantastic, which means Mark and I are going to make a post-game stop, get some Italian food. and in comes a former Homeland Security major and police officer, head coach, Earl Bates. He takes over the first year. He's been a longtime assistant, 5 years with the program. And this team, they've gotten so much better from year over year. I don't know if they beat Grimsley, but it is neat to see a program take that step from 2 wins to 5 wins to now they're 2-1 and have a chance to make the playoffs.
And they're sneaky good, aren't they? I mean, the Falcons certainly have a recipe for success. Run the football, play hard-nosed defense. We're going to get in, get out, and we're good to go. Easier said than done this week, sure. But we've seen some crazier things in high school football, and this is, no doubt about it, a talented team that Grimsley's going to have to go toe-to-toe with on Friday Night Rivals. It is a team that, again, runs the football with physicality, will get after you. That offensive line loves to move bodies. So they are going to have their way there as long as they are executing. And defensively, they're going to bring some pressure. They're going to put some pressure on Faison Brandon in that passing attack, force them to run the football more. Now, again, as we talked about between Williams and Summers, maybe that's not what you're asking for. But again, with Grimsley offensively, you're picking your poison, and you commit to either stopping the run or stopping the pass, and then forcing the other one to have to make up for what the other one did anyways. So I think, again, Southeast Guilford, as talented as they come, bit of a buzzsaw going against them this week, but they are very, very talented, especially when it comes to running the football.
And they have a kid, Tariq McLaughlin, that we're going to see. He's number 9, so keep an eye out for that on Friday Night Rivals. This dude, not only is he fast, but he's elusive in the hole. He'll average 5 yards a carry. Like, we come into these matchups sometimes and say, oh, super team versus borderline playoff team. Tariq McLaughlin is he'll be all league in the Metro 4A. And he's probably the next best running back behind Summers. So I do like this dynamic 1v1 matchup.
Really nice running back matchup we have this week. If you love running the football, keeping that thing on the ground and keeping the clock moving, it's probably going to be the game for you this week. McLaughlin is a guy that really pops when you watch film and you see him tote the rock a little bit. He's a guy that has that versatility, like you said, Evan. He's got it all around the field. Second level, you better watch out. You need to get him on the ground before he hits the second level. Otherwise, you're asking for trouble that way. So, again, this Falcons team loves to run the football. They're very good at it. The one loss that they have on their record is to Dudley. So another powerhouse in the area, of course. But the other two
And
games,
don't be fooled by that score. So Dudley won 49-0.
Yep.
It was 14-0 in the first half with Southeast Guilford inside the 5.
Yep.
Now you throw a pick 6 and then you go down, it's 21-0 at half, the game's over. But if it's 14-7 at half, I think that's the formula for Southeast this week.
Well,
and this, yeah, absolutely.
I'll say at that point, it would have been 7-7. So we're not even talking about 14-7. So no, it's a team. You let a game get away from you, obviously. Again, Dudley, very good within the area as well, as most people will know. But that's the one game that got away from them. The other two, they've more or less dominated, put up over 40 points. So this is a team that knows how to score. It knows what it can do. And as long as they execute on Friday, we've got the chance for a sneaky good game here. If Grimsley's caught a little bit off guard and Southeast Guilford at home finds some confidence, we could have a sneaky good game on our hands.
And Mark, you're an offensive lineman, so you appreciate this. The trenches could be fun.
Yeah.
Of course, Jamal Jarrett has since moved on. 2 years ago, he was 300 plus pounds. In comes another Hill, who's 295, and then a sophomore for Southeast Guilford, Brian Bellarand. He started as a freshman. He's 5'10", 295. Like, you want some beef at the D-tackle position? We got beef.
Beef. You like it. They got the meats, man. I mean, they are up front and ready to go. We talked about the way that they want to move bodies offensively. Defensively, good luck trying to move those bodies. I mean, that defensive line is stout. They do a great job of sucking up blockers and allow their linebackers and DBs to roam free on the back end of the defense and roll in there and make those plays around the line of scrimmage. It is a defensive line that is hungry. They are ready to go for this one. I'm excited. This is honestly, again, a lot of people probably look at this matchup and think, oh, Grimsley takes care of business like they always do. But like you point out, Evan, these Falcons have been the only team to give this Grimsley team a blemish here recently. So for them, they know what the formula is. They're going to be tough. They're going to be hard-nosed. They're going to get after it, and they're not going to quit. So I think it's got a real opportunity here between that running game and the defensive line that they present in this game. Grimsley's got a tough little competition ahead of them here tomorrow night.
Some really good stories to touch on as well with these programs. And Rebecca Russell now, she's actually due in about a month. She's pregnant, will be on the sideline, but she's got some great nuggets mixed in, not just kid stories in the broadcast. And then lastly, for Southeast Guilford, they only lost 9 seniors from a year ago.
Yeah.
I don't care what high school you go to. It's typically me, you, the kid in history class. Like, everybody's playing high school football. So now this team's got 50 upperclassmen and 25 seniors. Like, that's a different dynamic, just as we kind of wrap up our thoughts on the game of the week.
Yeah, it's the leadership factor that comes into play, and it means so much at the high school level when you've got those guys who have been in the trenches who are leading the team, and then you have the abundance in which Southeast Guilford has. 25 seniors is insane. So certainly a team that has seen their share of stuff. Like you noted, they've been all the way at the bottom, and every year they've just kept working their way up. And so now you put yourself in a position where you're going to be on TV. The spotlight is on you this week. And if you want to make a statement about the state of Southeast Guilford football, this is the game to do it. I know those seniors are hyping up this roster, letting them know, hey, we got to get after it this week.
We learned last week, Mark, if you're a ball boy and you're on the FNR game of the week, there is an expectation you get on that field and off that field. It was so cute. Third quarter, Eastern Alamance, Reedsville. We were up in Reedsville, and there was a little toddler, and then there was a middle schooler. And on alternating plays, they'd rotate. But Eastern wanted to go a little quicker in their offense. So a little man would run out. And then the Eastern coaching staff was like, Mitch Mitchner, hey, man, we got to get the big guy out here. We got to get this no-huddle offense moving a little bit after first downs. Mark, how about Reedsville, though? Deontay Neal, who's a receiver. He's not a quarterback by trade. Another 2-touchdown night, made some great plays with his legs in the second half. And I know Reedsville doesn't have Ali, and he's the best passer in Reedsville history. But this offense is just as dangerous with Neal leading the show.
And there's some inconsistencies. Now, again, when you have Deontay Neal back there, who is by trade a wide receiver and a defensive back, it's going to take some transition. But two things that immediately came to our mind and for what we were seeing. One, the kid's got an absolute cannon of an arm. I mean, he was uncorking passes left and right. Some of them were pretty well overthrown.
Yeah, he overshot guys throwing it 45 yards down the field.
Oh, he sure did. He sure did. But he's got an arm, and he's not afraid. And I think when you step into that situation, you can't have fear of throwing the football, putting it out there. Does not have any fear. Knows he has the weapons that can capitalize on any throw he puts down there as long as he puts it in their area. And it showed out in that way. He was fantastic. Had a 50-yard touchdown run where he split the safeties down the field. I mean, it was incredible. Incredible roster overall, but highlighted by a player with the caliber of Deontay Neal. A very special player to watch. And we talk about college scouts all the time on this podcast. He is going to be a guy that's going to gander a lot of attention up there in Reidsville.
Especially as a junior quarterback.
Yeah.
And some news this week. We had heard whispers the week before. Hey, there's this Max Preps National Player of the Year in North Carolina, Kendra Harrison.
What?
And Kendra wanted to consider going back and speculation. But there are rules in place, and the rules do allow Kendra to return to campus. Uncertain whether he plays this week, but regardless, Mark, the best player in the state is back for a Reidsville team that wants to win 3 straight titles.
Well, a Reidsville team that's very much primed to win 3 straight titles. And now you give them another weapon, arguably the best one in the state, in Kendra Harrison coming back, his brief stay at Providence Day down in the Charlotte area. So him coming back, I mean, you thought that the receivers that they had now were issues. And, well, Deontay Neal's enough, and receivers are enough, and running the football is enough. You have arguably the best tight end in the state, one of the best weapons of the state coming back into your high school. And he'll play at some point this season. We don't know if it'll be this week, but he will certainly be back on the field, I would say, possibly even next week. So certainly a massive boost for an offense that it doesn't even seem like it's real. We're playing Ultimate Team at this point, just stacking players out of packs.
Yeah, you have Janiah Sharp, who's a good route runner.
Yep.
You have this kid Cam Jones, who's basically the shorter version of Kendra Harrison. He's like 6'2", not 6'8". And then the little speedster Frankie Galloway. Man, if you're Eric Teague, you are licking your chops to get him back on the field and add another piece to what, we talk all the time about Mount Airy, at least I do.
Yep.
I do think this Reidsville team, maybe not from the offensive line, but from a skill position standpoint, they can compete with the Weddingtons, the Grimsleys, you name it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, pound for pound, weapon for weapon, at that 2A level, you're going to find it real hard to find a team that competes with what Reidsville puts on the field. And that's just offensively. We haven't even touched on it defensively. Again, Deontay Neal switches over to corner at that point, or safety, just roaming in that secondary. Linebackers are stout. Defensive line is stout. I mean, it's going to be tough. Is it impossible? No. To beat Reidsville? No, it's not impossible. But it's going to be as hard as any team as you're going to play in the state, especially going into Reidsville. If you have to play the Rams, good luck to you. And again, the rich get richer with Kendra Harrison coming back on campus and making a difference.
Lastly, for Reidsville, they have not been held in single digits in 12 years. So you will have to outscore the Rams to beat the Rams.
12 years, man.
From one locomotive to another, conference play begins this week, Mark. And we touched on the great matchup of the Falcons of Southeast Guilford and Grimsley. But I do want to go over to the CPC, the Central Piedmont Conference.
Yep. This
is not only a playoff preview, but who will host a playoff matchup. Mount Tabor, led by Peterkin and Jadon Blair, and an offense that's slowly coming together. And then a West Forsyth team that runs the football so well. They were really physical against Oak Grove. If you're looking at your playoff brackets, okay, who's that 5 seed? Who's the 6? Who gets to host? This is a great matchup to give you a sense.
So you got Mount Tabor and West, who are, again, as you alluded to, are facing off this week. And then you've got East and you've got Reagan, who are all perennial playoff contenders in the western side of the bracket. I mean, in one conference. And they're all, I believe, going to play each other this year. So, I mean, by the end of the season, one of those teams, more or less, is going to have bragging rights over the others. Playoff positioning is massive in those games, and they've all got their strengths. West is going to run the football like crazy down your throat. and they're going to play hard-nosed defense and bring pressure. Mount Tabor is just going to straight up smash you in the mouth and do it over and over again until you wave the white flag. East Forsyth is going to do it athletically. Reagan is going to do it with a backup quarterback who's overperforming right now. So there are so many different play styles for each of those teams, but there are certainly going to be a ton of eyes drawn to that West Mount Tabor game this week. And certainly with the prospects that are also playing in that game between Blair, between Snook-Peterkin, it's going to be a really fun one to watch. And I know we're going to certainly have our eyes on it.
A little picture-in-picture.
Exactly. It's kind of spread them apart. You got to be like a chameleon tomorrow night.
In the 4A bracket, this is the latest projections from High School OT. They do a great job with this stuff, by the way. All three of those programs you mentioned, top 12 seeds. So they could host multiple rounds. And then once you get to the third and fourth round. But, I mean, Mark, this is a heavy-hitting start to the week. And then one note, we'll see Glenn next week against Reagan. Glenn is the last team in. So that's 5 programs from the CPC projected to make the 4A playoffs.
And Glenn's the sneaky one because Glenn's always been known for running the football and being arguably one of the best defensive teams in the area, maybe even the state. Now they have new coaching staff in there, a little bit of revitalization with what they're doing. Kind of seemed like the offense was just stuck almost in neutral for so many years now. And now the offense is starting to pick up a little bit. That defense is still there. So the Glen Bobcats, sneaky pick within the CPC. I am excited to see how they move forward and continue to develop. But we are, again, we see them very, very soon. It's going to be a fun little matchup that we have with them and Reagan. Reagan going through their own issues with injuries again.
How about our standouts of the week? And you note the Jacob Smith injury. Reagan's played well without him, but that's never easy. So in the state of North Carolina, there's this program called Davie County. You lose your college recruit, 4,000-yard passer, and in comes a sophomore, Drayton Nance, who'd never played a game in his life at the varsity level until this week. And he throws, I got to double check the numbers, 450 yards and 5 touchdowns for Davie County. Like, we know with Tim Devericks, the War Eagles are going to push the ball, they're going to move it, they're going to stretch it downfield. But his guy, Ethan Driver, who's playing more like Donald Driver of the Green Bay Packers, a solid 270, back-to-back weeks, 200 yards receiving.
That's just ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, 200 yards receiving in back-to-back weeks, almost 500 passing. Look, man, you love to put the football in the air. Davie County's the team for you. They want to stretch the field, push that ball down the field, like you said, Evan. They are not afraid to take shots. And they've got the horses to go get those footballs once they're in the air. They will gallop straight down the field and snare one and go in for 6. So it is an explosive offense, one that, again, we'll see down the road as well. There's so many teams that we cover that have so many different styles of play. And the most prolific passing-wise may very well be Davie County. So it's going to be interesting to see how that transitions. Obviously, when the colder months come in and those weeks get a little colder and that ball gets a little harder to catch and throw, if that running game contributes. But right now, Davie, a little slow start, but that is quite the promising sign going into conference play.
As Bryce Baker says, hold my sweet tea when it comes to best passing games in the Triad area. One other player of note, Tayshawn Martin of Mount Airy. This is my weekly spew Mount Airy facts to you. But all Tayshawn has done is average 300 yards a game in the first 3 weeks. Mount Airy now a 34 going on 35 game win streak. They'll open league play this week. Man, the Reedsville trifecta, the Mount Airy trifecta, Weddington going for back-to-back, and then in 3A, Hickory is the best team going back-to-back. Like, Mark, we have some real powerful programs going for state championships.
There's some staying power in the state of North Carolina right now. These teams that are winning championships aren't one and done. It's not a miracle run and then, okay, we kind of like drop back down to where we normally are. No. Weddington not going away. Hickory not going away. Reedsville not going away. And you had better bet of the 4 teams that won their state championships last year, Mount Airy is probably the one that's certainly not going away the most. So, I mean, the Granite Bears always hang around. They always play a style of offense that's so difficult. Defensively, they're always stout. Well-coached team, great program overall. They're not going away anywhere anytime soon. And again, life goes on for the Granite Bears. Mount Airy just continues to dominate game after game, year after year.
And lastly, we noted Reagan coming in, but I want to talk defense. We always talk offense on these Stars of the Week. How about Reagan middle linebacker Leo Heisel-Reichich? It's a name that you and I will struggle to say when we see Reagan and Glenn next week. But in 3 games, he has 50 tackles, and 40 of those are solo stops at the middle linebacking spot.
Pretty awesome, isn't it? You got a middle linebacker who can sniff out the run, make plays over the middle for the passing game. That's what you want. You need that leader as the heart of your defense in the middle of all of it, able to direct traffic, get guys set, call out the plays, identify things as you go along with the game. Hey, I saw this going on, so we need to make an adjustment here so that we're ready for the next time we have that look. He's right there in the thick of it. He's making the right reads, he's making the right calls, and he's making the right plays. And is a massive reason why, yet again, Reagan, going through the injury struggles that they have right now, are still in the thick of things. Just another reason when you have players like that who can step up in those leadership roles and make the amount of plays that he has so far. Big kudos, and Reagan's getting it done yet again.
Reagan, like most of the state of North Carolina, league play begins this Friday. So buckle up. The next 5-6 weeks, we have playoff matchups. We'll see on Friday Night Rivals, arguably the best team in the state, who just dominated Rollsville a couple of weeks back. And now you get a sense who's who, who's not. The rankings start making a little more sense. You start looking ahead to the end of October for playoff brackets. And Mark, this might be my favorite time of the year because now the contenders really stand out.
Yeah, this is where the real season starts. You talk to any coach within the state, and they'll tell you, shoot, even the country, they'll tell you conference play is what that non-conference stuff was for. You have those schedules, and you go against really good teams in those non-conference games because you want to be ready and battle tested for when conference play comes around, because this is where it matters. This is where your first claim to a championship can begin. Saying you are a conference champion, that helps you elevate your status. It helps you get a better seed in the playoffs. So this is where the real season starts. This is where you start finding out, like you said, who the Jimmies and the Joes are and where they stand amongst the crowd.
I really hope you would have said Jimmy's and John's, but I appreciate the Jimmy's and Joe's reference too. We want to thank our sponsor, Mountain Fried Chicken, for making these podcasts possible, and our friends at My 48.
I can't say Jimmy John's if we're going to shout out Mountain Fried Chicken right after that. That doesn't seem right.
It is blasphemy in the South. For Mark Covert, I'm Evan Budrovich. We'll see you guys in Greensboro tomorrow night, and more importantly, halfway through our high school season. So plenty more to talk about here on Piedmont PowWow.
I am ecstatic about eating these puppies. There's an out route. Oh, it's picked!
Are you kidding me? It's a scrum in the middle of the field. And there's Gibson just pulling his way through that entire War Eagles defense.
On his senior night, Chaplin escapes. What a start with a touchdown.
You know.
Leaning tower of pretzels.
Oh!